They were legends, icons, gods on the silver screen. But behind the golden facade of flashing cameras and smiling interviews, some of the biggest stars carried secrets so personal, they took them to the grave. These weren't just flings or whispered rumors. These were real hidden romances, forbidden loves. Same-sex partners in a time of silence, affairs that could ruin reputations and end careers. These aren't rumors. These are real love stories, hidden from the world, revealed only after the curtain fell. 1. Marlon Brando and Rita Moreno. Marlon Brando wasn't just a Hollywood icon, he was a force of nature. While the world worshipped his performances in A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather, few knew that behind the scenes he was entangled in a fiery, off-the-record romance with actress Rita Moreno. Their love was everything Hollywood feared, volatile, electric, and painfully real. Brando was unpredictable, and Moreno was addicted to the emotional chaos he brought. They broke each other over and over, in a relationship filled with betrayal, passion, and silence. For decades, their affair remained one of Tinseltown's best-kept secrets. It wasn't until much later in life that Moreno revealed the truth. Brando was the man who haunted her. Their relationship wasn't just a secret, it was a scar, hidden beneath decades of fame. 2. Richard Burton and Susan Strasberg. Richard Burton was one of Hollywood's most magnetic figures, famous not just for his thunderous performances, but for his wild, stormy love life. His relationship with Elizabeth Taylor was the stuff of tabloids and legend, passionate, public, and endlessly dramatic. But while the world watched Liz and Dick burn bright, another love stayed hidden in the shadows. Burton carried on a secret affair with Susan Strasberg, an actress and the daughter of famed acting coach Lee Strasberg. Their connection was deep, intellectual, and emotional. While Taylor lit up the headlines, Strasberg captured his quieter side. Susan later revealed their story in her memoir, exposing a version of Burton the public never saw, vulnerable, conflicted, and pulled between two worlds. For all the noise his public love made, it was the secret one that left a silent mark. 3. Greta Garbo and Mercedes de Acosta. Greta Garbo was the original enigma. She stunned audiences with her haunting beauty and captivating silence, then disappeared from public life just as mysteriously. Garbo didn't just avoid the spotlight, she ran from it. She gave no interviews, attended no premieres. Her personal life? Locked away. But behind that mystique was a secret love story. For decades, Garbo carried on a private, emotionally rich relationship with Mercedes de Acosta, a bold and openly gay playwright. Their romance was kept in the shadows, protected by privacy and society's silence. They traveled together, wrote to each other, loved each other. Garbo never publicly acknowledged the relationship, but the truth surfaced after her death. When dozens of intimate letters were discovered, they revealed a bond filled with longing, tenderness, and coded passion. In a time when same-sex love was unspoken, Garbo's silence wasn't denial, it was protection. She lived on her own terms, and she loved the same way, in secret, and with depth the world never saw. 4. Judy Garland and Tyrone Power. Judy Garland lit up the screen with unmatched talent and heartbreak in her eyes. From The Wizard of Oz to A Star is Born, she became a legend. But behind the curtain was a woman constantly battling addiction, anxiety, and a desperate need for real love. That's when Tyrone Power entered her life. Power was one of Hollywood's most dashing leading men, charismatic, adored, and equally lonely. The two began a secret affair that only their closest inner circle knew about. Their connection was electric but delicate, and they knew it could never survive the harsh glare of Hollywood. For Garland, it was a rare sliver of joy in a life filled with pressure and pain. But like so many of her relationships, this one too was swallowed by the demands of fame and her own inner demons. They never spoke of it publicly, and when Power died suddenly in 1958, Judy carried the weight of their secret until her own tragic end. It wasn't just an affair, it was a brief escape, and it died in the shadows, just like they did. 5. Rock Hudson and his hidden truth. To the world, Rock Hudson was the perfect leading man. Tall, handsome, irresistible. He starred in romantic hits like Pillow Talk and Giant, charming millions with a smile that seemed effortless. But behind that smile was a man hiding an entire identity. Rock Hudson was gay, but Hollywood wouldn't let him say it. In an era when being openly gay meant career suicide, Hudson buried his truth. He dated women publicly, married for show, and behind closed doors, he quietly loved the men who truly knew him. His relationships were real, but they were invisible to the public. Only after his death in 1985, from complications related to AIDS, did the truth explode into the headlines. Suddenly, America was forced to confront not just Hudson's secret, but the deadly stigma around AIDS and the silence forced upon so many LGBTQ actors. His death became a turning point, a tragedy, a wake-up call, but most of all, it revealed a man who loved with his whole heart, even if the world never saw it. 6. Clark Gable and Joan Crawford. Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, was known for his charm, grit, and undeniable presence in classics like Gone with the Wind. Joan Crawford was just as iconic, glamorous, commanding, and unforgettable. On screen, their chemistry was electric. Off screen, it was even more real, just carefully hidden. Gable and Crawford starred in multiple films together, and insiders noticed their bond went far beyond the script. They shared stolen moments, private meetings, and a connection too risky to reveal. At the time, both were under strict studio contracts, and Hollywood was ruthless about scandals. Crawford was married. Gable was constantly navigating a tangled love life. But through it all, they kept in touch, long after the cameras stopped rolling. Their affair was never confirmed publicly. No declarations, no interviews, just whispers, long glances, and decades of speculation. They were Hollywood royalty, but their love lived quietly, in the spaces between the headlines. 7. Audrey Hepburn and William Holden. Audrey Hepburn was the embodiment of grace, elegant, kind, and universally adored. William Holden was her opposite in many ways, charming, magnetic, but self-destructive. When they met on the set of Sabrina in 1954, it was instant chemistry, on and off the screen. But there was a problem. Holden was married. Their affair burned quietly behind closed doors. Audrey had fallen deeply for him and even dreamed of marriage and children. But Holden, unable to give her a family due to a past vasectomy, never told her until it was too late. Heartbroken and betrayed, Audrey ended the relationship, but never stopped loving him. They continued to work together, most notably in Paris when it sizzles, where their unresolved tension bled through every scene. It was a romance built on real emotion but doomed by circumstance. She moved on. He never did, and Hollywood never saw the full story until it was far too late. 8. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Spencer Tracy was the rugged, no-nonsense actor Hollywood couldn't get enough of. Katharine Hepburn was bold, brilliant, and fiercely independent. Together, they became one of the most legendary duos in film history, starring in 9 movies and stealing scenes every time they shared the screen. But off-screen, they shared something much deeper, a decades-long love affair they never admitted publicly. The catch? Tracy was married and a devout Catholic. He refused to divorce his wife, even though he lived separately and spent most of his time with Hepburn. Their relationship was an open secret in Hollywood, and yet never officially confirmed. Hepburn respected his beliefs. She never pushed for recognition. Even after his death, she waited years before finally acknowledging the truth. Their love was deep, loyal, and heartbreakingly quiet. It wasn't for the cameras. It wasn't for the press. It was just for them. 9. James Dean and Pier Angeli. James Dean was the face of rebellion, mystery, and heartbreak. His life was short, just 24 years, but his impact was eternal. Behind the leather jacket and brooding stare, Dean was a deeply sensitive soul, one who loved fiercely but often in secret. His most famous hidden romance? Pier Angeli, a rising Italian actress and his rumored true love. They shared a passionate connection, but Angeli's strict Catholic mother disapproved. Pressured by her family and the studio system, she married another man, breaking Dean's heart. He didn't attend the wedding, but reportedly watched it from his motorcycle across the street. Their story ended in silence. But after Dean's tragic car crash in 1955, Pier Angeli revealed the depth of their bond and her regret. Rumors also swirled about Dean's bisexuality, with whispers of male lovers he never acknowledged publicly. But Dean, ever the enigma, took those secrets with him. He lived fast, loved hard, and left behind a trail of questions no one could ever fully answer. 10. Vivien Leigh and Peter Finch. Vivien Leigh captivated the world as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, radiant, commanding, unforgettable. But behind that luminous beauty was a woman battling bipolar disorder, emotional collapse, and a desperate need for stability. While married to legendary actor Laurence Olivier, Vivien found unexpected solace in Peter Finch, a younger actor she met while filming in Australia. Their affair was intense and compassionate. Finch offered her what Olivier no longer could: gentleness, understanding, and emotional safety. But their romance had to stay hidden. Vivien was still married, Finch was gaining fame, and Hollywood had no space for a woman breaking apart in private. Eventually, Leigh's mental health spiraled. The affair ended, but its emotional mark lingered on both their lives. Only after her death did biographers uncover the full story, a woman adored by millions, quietly aching for peace, and a man who loved her through the storm. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a cry for comfort, and it stayed in the shadows until the very end. 11. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was the brooding heartthrob of 1950s Hollywood, intense, soulful, and groundbreaking in films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity. But behind that quiet charisma was a man carrying a heavy secret. He was gay in a time that refused to accept it. Clift's relationships with men were real, but they had to remain invisible. Studios controlled his image, and being openly gay could have destroyed his career. So he smiled for the cameras and suffered in silence. The pressure to conform, to be what the public wanted, tore at him. A devastating car accident in 1956 left his once beautiful face shattered. It became a symbol of his inner turmoil. Broken, hidden, changed. He turned to alcohol and pills to numb the pain, but never let the world see the full truth. Not about his trauma, not about his love. Only after his death in 1966 did people begin to understand the magnitude of what he endured. He was a man ahead of his time, but forced to live behind a mask until his very last breath. 12. Hedy Lamarr and Spencer Tracy. Hedy Lamarr wasn't just one of the most stunning faces in Hollywood. She was a brilliant inventor whose ideas would later shape modern technology like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But while the world admired her beauty, few ever knew the truth about her private life. Hedy had multiple secret relationships throughout her life, carefully hidden from the press. One of the most persistent rumors? A quiet romance with actor Spencer Tracy. Neither of them ever confirmed it, and in true old Hollywood fashion, it remained a whispered maybe. But sources close to both stars claimed their bond went deeper than friendship. Why the secrecy? Because Lamarr valued her privacy above all else. In a time when actresses were treated like tabloid trophies, she chose to protect what was real. She lived with elegance, thought with brilliance, and loved in the shadows. To the world, she was a goddess. To those who knew her, she was far more. 13. Rita Hayworth and Victor Mature. Rita Hayworth was the ultimate screen siren. Her red hair, her sultry moves in Gilda, and her tragic beauty made her one of Hollywood's brightest stars. But behind the seductive image was a woman constantly searching for stability and hiding pieces of her heart from the public. One of those pieces belonged to Victor Mature, a fellow actor known for his roles in Samson and Delilah and My Darling Clementine. Their romance was real, but completely hidden. At a time when Rita's life was tabloid gold, she kept this relationship fiercely private. No interviews, no red carpet appearances, no public photos. Just two stars finding something normal in an industry that made everything feel staged. Rita's life was marked by failed marriages, alcoholism, and emotional isolation. But with Mature, she found a rare, quiet bond, one not meant for the spotlight. Only after her death did the truth come out. Even the most glamorous woman in Hollywood needed something real and chose to keep it secret. 14. Howard Hughes and Ava Gardner. Howard Hughes was a billionaire, aviation pioneer, filmmaker, and full-blown enigma. He lived in penthouses and hotel rooms, often refusing to see anyone. But before he became a recluse, he shared a hidden, fiery relationship with one of Hollywood's most desired women, Ava Gardner. Ava was bold, untamed, and stunning, and Hughes was obsessed with her. Their romance wasn't simple. Hughes tried to control her, surveil her, even manipulate her choices. But Ava was no shrinking violet. She fought back. She challenged him. She was one of the few people who didn't fear him. They kept their relationship private, mostly because Hughes demanded it. And while they never married, their connection spanned years, filled with volatile moments, luxury, power plays, and undeniable passion. After Hughes' death, Gardner revealed pieces of the truth. He was brilliant, generous, maddening, and deeply lonely. It wasn't love in the traditional sense. It was war and worship, chaos and chemistry, kept far away from the cameras. 15. Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy. Marilyn Monroe was more than a movie star. She was a phenomenon. Radiant, fragile, endlessly desired. But while the world saw the glamorous smile, few knew about the affair that would become one of the most infamous in American history. Marilyn and President John F. Kennedy shared a secret, explosive romance. One so risky, it had to be buried deep beneath public image and political power. They met at parties, through mutual friends, in whispered corners. It was brief, intense, and completely hidden from the public eye. But their chemistry was undeniable. And then came that performance, Marilyn's breathy happy birthday serenade to JFK at Madison Square Garden in 1962. It wasn't just flirtation, it was confirmation. and it sent shockwaves through the political elite. Their alleged affair was never officially acknowledged, but the tension, the danger, and the aftermath all pointed to something very real. Months later, Monroe was found dead. Overdose? Suicide? Or something darker? Whatever the truth was, Marilyn took it with her, and the affair that could have shaken the world stayed sealed in history's vault. 16. Ingrid Bergman and Robert Capa. Ingrid Bergman was Hollywood royalty, graceful, intelligent, unforgettable in classics like Casablanca and Notorious. But while the cameras captured her elegance, they missed one of the most powerful romances of her life. Shadows of post-war Europe, Ingrid fell deeply in love with Robert Capa, a world-famous war photographer known for capturing D-Day and the Spanish Civil War. Capa was unlike anyone Ingrid had ever known. He wasn't from Hollywood, he was from the trenches. He had seen death, chaos, and survival. And Ingrid was drawn to his edge, his intellect, his scars. They met in Paris. The chemistry was immediate, but the timing was impossible. Bergman was still married. Capa was restless, traumatized, and always chasing the next battlefield. Their love burned fast and quiet, never official, never confirmed. But it changed them both. Only after her death did their letters and memories surface, revealing a love that bridged two completely different worlds. She was the face of old Hollywood. He was the soul of war-torn Europe. And for one fleeting moment, they found each other. 17. Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. Joan Crawford was fierce, glamorous, and larger than life. Clark Gable was rugged, charming, and the king of the silver screen. Together, they were a box office dream. And off-screen, a hidden reality. Their on-screen chemistry was electric. Audiences felt it. Studios encouraged it. But few knew they were actually entangled in a passionate, long-running secret affair. The reasons for secrecy were many. Studio contracts, arranged marriages, and an industry obsessed with controlling its stars. Crawford and Gable were both married at different times during their romance. And back then, scandal could end a career. They never confirmed anything. No statements, no confessions, just decades of whispers, glances, and a closeness that never quite faded. Even as they moved on to others, their love was quiet, calculated, and carefully buried beneath fame. In a world that demanded perfect image, they chose secrecy over spotlight and kept a great Hollywood love story from ever becoming public legend. 18. Errol Flynn and Beverly Odland. Errol Flynn was the original bad boy of Hollywood. Charming, reckless, and constantly chasing the next thrill. He played swashbuckling heroes on screen, but his real-life escapades were far more dangerous. His most controversial? A secret relationship with 15-year-old actress Beverly Odland. Flynn was in his 40s. She was barely a teenager. The affair was kept under wraps by studios desperate to protect his image. They traveled together. She was with him on set. And when he died in 1959, she was by his side. Only later did the full story come out, through Odland's own memoir, revealing a relationship filled with manipulation, obsession, and a disturbing power imbalance. It wasn't just a hidden romance, it was a scandal buried under red carpets, and a truth Hollywood didn't want to face. 19. Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean. Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood's eternal goddess, bold, beautiful, and endlessly talked about. James Dean was the rebel who lived fast, died young, and left behind more questions than answers. Together, they starred in Giant, and behind the scenes, they shared something far deeper than friendship. Their connection was electric, intense, and completely secret. Dean was private, guarded, and mysterious about his personal life. Taylor, already married at the time, knew the risks. They kept their feelings buried beneath professional smiles and public distance. But after both of their deaths, biographies revealed what had been hidden for decades. A real romance, brief but powerful, that neither of them ever publicly acknowledged. They were both damaged, both iconic, and both desperately searching for something real in a world that constantly demanded performance. Their love never made the tabloids, but it lived in whispers, glances, and the empty spaces between fame and truth. 20. Cary Grant and Randolph Scott. Cary Grant was the picture of perfection, suave, debonair, and effortlessly cool. From North by Northwest to Charade, he embodied the leading man every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But off-screen, there was another story, one Hollywood kept in the shadows. For over a decade, Grant lived with fellow actor Randolph Scott. They shared a home, vacations, routines, a life. Publicly, they were bachelors. Privately, many believed they were far more than friends. Photos from the 1930s and 40s show the two men lounging by the pool, laughing in matching robes, and living what looked like a quiet domestic life. But under pressure from studios terrified of scandal, the story was buried. Both men denied the relationship, and Grant went on to marry multiple women. Still, the whispers never stopped. And in recent years, historians and those who knew them have suggested that their bond was very real and deeply romantic. Cary Grant's greatest performance may not have been on screen, but in hiding the one person he may have truly loved. They made the world fall in love with them, but their deepest loves stayed hidden. Some secrets protected careers, others protected hearts. All were real. Because in the end, the greatest love stories aren't always the ones we see on screen. They're the ones whispered behind closed doors, buried with the fame, and finally revealed when it's too late to undo them.